The following presentation is brought to you by Discovery Education, leading the world of digital and video learning. Discovery Education, connect to a world of learning.
"12-year-old Julius Tiberius Livius, or Julius to his friends, is enjoying life as a senator's son in ancient Rome. His days are filled with school, festivals, and the excitement of letters from far-off lands.
Dear Journal, wow, so much has been happening this week, I hardly know where to start. A few days ago, Grandfather took me to the Colosseum. The gladiators were very strong, but I was most impressed by Grandfather's tale of the naval battle they say was held here once. Some people say they filled the entire arena with water. It must have been an amazing sight. But Grandfather said nothing could be like the Battle of Actium. That was real, and he says that what happened there changed our world forever. We've just been learning about this in school, so I already knew this story. Everything started just after Julius Caesar was killed, and two men rose to power. One was Mark Antony, Caesar's most trusted general. He was popular and good-looking. And the other was Caesar's nephew, Octavian. He was only 18 years old, and he wasn't much of a warrior, but he was very smart. Octavian and Mark Antony agreed to share the rule of Rome, but they really didn't like each other very much. Each man wanted to rule by himself. Despite this, Mark Antony married Octavian's sister. But then he moved to Egypt and married the Egyptian queen Cleopatra without bothering to divorce his Roman wife. The Romans were furious. They thought Mark Antony was not respecting Rome. Octavian saw a chance to take away Antony's power. He told the Senate that Antony wanted to turn his share of Roman rule over to Cleopatra and her children. Antony and Cleopatra set up a base in Greece near a place called Actium. Here, they would be in a good position to sail across the sea and strike Rome. Everyone prepared for a big battle. When their navies finally met one September morning, hundreds of battleships were carrying more than 250,000 men. Antony and Cleopatra had bigger ships, but they were heavy and hard to turn. Octavian's forces used good strategy against them. First, they positioned the navy so that Antony and Cleopatra would have to pass them to reach the open sea and get away. Then, they kept their ships back so that Antony and Cleopatra's men would have to row their big boats long and hard. They were tired and outmaneuvered by the time the battle started. After hours of fierce combat, Octavian had won a big victory. He returned to Rome with many new ideas about how to reform the army and run a fair and efficient government. He worked cleverly with the senators and other government officials so they were willing to let him lead by himself for a long time. Octavian became known as Emperor Augustus. Since then, the long period of peace and stability, the Pax Romana, has continued. Today, more than 150 years later, Rome is still strong. Teacher says that the world would be a very different place if Octavian had lost the Battle of Actium. I'm glad that we're living in such good times now. Yesterday we celebrated a festival in honor of the new Pantheon, Emperor Hadrian's temple to all the gods. Everyone has been talking about the huge dome, so we went to see it for ourselves. Emperor Hadrian designed the rotunda, or round room, as a sphere to remind us of the heavens. Father told me the ceiling was as high as 25 men, and the room the same size across. The oculus, or round opening at the top, is as wide as 5 men. It is designed to connect us to the sun, the eye of heaven. What an amazing sight! I bet that all the gods are pleased. And we Romans have a lot of gods. Teacher says that it's because as our empire has grown, we have welcomed and worshipped gods of other lands. We have gods and goddesses for everything. Marriage, food, wine, harvests, cooking, even our doorways. Grandfather says it's every Roman's duty to pay proper respect to the gods at temples like the Pantheon and at home. Our main gods are Jupiter and Juno, king and queen of the gods. Mars, the god of war. Venus, the goddess of love. Minerva, the goddess of wisdom. Neptune, the god of the sea, and many others. One of my all-time favorite gods is Mercury, the messenger. That's because I like to get letters. Last week, I got a letter from my cousin Marcus, who is with his family in Britannia. His father is the commander of a Roman legion, so they travel around and live in the camps with him. Teacher told me that Britannia is many weeks away at the far northern edge of our empire. From there, we rule west to Hispania, south to Africa and Egypt, and east to Parthia. In just 900 years, Rome has grown from a little village to the biggest country the world has ever seen. Father says that could never have happened without our Roman legionnaires. He says that they are the best organized, most well-trained warriors in history. They come from all over the empire. Some are even people from other countries who fight with our army so they can earn Roman citizenship. Every man has the most up-to-date equipment we can supply. Father says we are smart to borrow the best ideas from our former enemies. Our swords were originally from Hispania. The shields are from an ancient Samnite design. And the helmets are Etruscan. But the pilum, a long spear, is entirely a Roman invention. The tip is shaped to make it easy to go into a shield, but hard to pull out. Marcus is so lucky. He gets to watch the men practice every day. He says the pilum is hard to throw, but his father's men have the best aim in the entire Roman army. We have bigger weapons too. The Greeks invented the scorpion, but our engineers made it more powerful and accurate. The harder the ratchets pull the rope, the farther the arrow can fly. My favorite is the ballista. Marcus says that it can launch heavy balls more than a quarter mile. I would not want to have to fight against that. The men train for hours every day. They go on long marches with all their equipment so they can stay in shape. And they practice their battle techniques, like the tortoise formation. When the men rest, they tell stories about the battles they have fought, and Marcus writes to me about everything he hears. About 40 years ago, we Romans were advancing into the hills of Britannia, but their people, called the Britons, wanted to remain free of Roman rule. 30,000 of their men rallied behind their leader, Calgacus, and charged our legions. Although the Britons were brave and fierce, they could not overcome our weapons and training. During the battle, they lost more than 10,000 men. When they retreated, they burned their villages rather than have them fall into Roman hands. But Father tells me that it takes more than winning one big battle for our legions to succeed. They need to be very organized about other important things. They need a safe place for the men to live. And they need a way to bring supplies and food to the front lines. Wherever our legions go, they bring people to help them build the walls, forts, and roads they need to take care of their men. We have the most careful engineers in the world to help us design and build things. The first thing they do is take a survey, or careful measurements of the land, to help them make things level and straight. Last week in school, teachers showed us a groma, the tool used for surveys. It has a wooden cross with 2 pairs of plumb bobs hanging down. The surveyor lines up 1 pair of the bobs, and his assistants place markers to create a straight line. After carefully planning the site, they make the ground level, and then they start building. They build walls, towers to keep watch, and forts for our men to live in. But most importantly, they build roads. We like to say that all roads lead to Rome. Grandfather says that Rome is like a beating heart, and the roads are blood vessels that circulate life throughout our empire. They make it possible for the emperor to send and receive messages. Farmers carry food to the cities, and traders bring goods from far away. Marcus says that everyone looks forward to the days that visitors arrive at the fort. He says it can get pretty lonely so far away from Rome. Anyway, our roads help us transport food, letters, supplies, and even armies from one end of the empire to another. And we Romans are really good at building roads to last. First, the surveyors measure to plan the best place for a straight and level road. Then, they dig a ditch with retaining walls to channel water away. After that, they lay stones and mortar, a mixture that hardens to hold things together. Next comes a layer of gravel, and on the surface they put large stone slabs very close together. Our Roman roads are well traveled all over the world. Someday I hope to take a long trip on them to see the sights that Marcus writes about. Won't that be great?